The main type of graph that we'll be probably talking about this year in statistics is a histogram. So it's really important that you kind of track with the big idea and let me know if you have any questions on this. So what is a histogram? Or how do we kind of create a histogram? Well, we take all of our data and we divide the range. So from the smallest value to the largest, we divide it into a bunch of what we call classes. And you can think about these as buckets or like chunks of numbers. So if I have numbers that vary from 0 to 100, I might make the classes every 10. So one class would be 0 to 10, the next would be 10 to 20, 20 to 30, etc. You can have as many or as few classes as you want, but all of your classes should be the same size. I don't believe this is strictly required for it to be a histogram, but our brains are used to like tracking things with the same size, and if you don't make the same size, it isn't as useful. So what you want to do is think about how many classes do I need to be able to divide this up into a useful number where I do get some spread, but not so many that there's, one or two in every class, and not so few that there's only one or two classes that have everything. After you've created your classes, you're going to sort the observation into those classes. So if I've got a bunch of numbers, so 10, 15, 32, 12, 46, 82, etc., then I'm just going to sort them. So 10 would go into the 0 to 10, 15 would go in the 10 to 20. And this is, I will point out, technically we should have less thans on these, so like 0, any number 0 or greater, all the way up to less than 10. Numbers greater than 10 but less than or equal to 20. Numbers greater than 20 but less than or equal to 30. So you do need to decide kind of where if a number falls on the class division, will they always go into the upper class or into the lower class? So we sort those and then we count them up. And then we create a column with the height equal to the number of, how did I phrase this? Let me check my notes real quick. The number of observations. So create a column with height equal to the number of observations. So if there were 30 that fell into that class, your height goes up to 30. And you should typically not have space between columns. So this is distinguishing it from a bar graph or a bar chart. With bar charts, we want spaces between our columns. With a histogram, we don't, because what we want to be representing is that histograms cover a span. And then that span immediately goes into the next span. And then that span immediately goes into the one after. So that when we come down here and we say 0 to 10, 10 to 20, and again I'm being a little sloppy because the endpoints, we should know which side they fall in, but there's no gap because, then it might look like, oh, what if it's 19? Does it fall between this, or does it still get captured by one of these two? This is the most flexible and useful for most data sets, and it lets us really quickly see a lot of information. So here's an example of a histogram, hours spent playing video games on weekends. So we've got our classes. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 classes because we've got 5 bars. A class can still exist with no height. So if, for example, this first one was at 0, like there are no students who played between 0 and 5 hours, this would still be a class. It would just be a class with no observations. And then we can look and see, okay, 2 students played between 0 and 5 hours of video games, 3 between 5 and 10, 4 between 10 and 15, 7 between 15 and 20, 9 between 20 and 25. So this lets us see this, and we'll talk a lot more about histograms going forward, but I just want to make sure people have the basic idea.